Hey guys, Cody and Brady from GOHUNT Optics. What we're talking about today is the VA-5 head. Near and dear to my heart. I own 4 of them now. I can't stop using them. My kids use them. I put them through quite a bit with all the testing and you know, optics change outs that we use every year. So, I mean, for me personally, I don't have to really look, you know, very far. With all but the heaviest of optics, this does everything I want it to do, you know, up through the BTX and 95. Admittedly, when I go to the BTX 115, I try to use a bigger head. But this really has become my workhorse of a head that way, and I can't even give it enough praise.
And I'll counter you on that. I use mine all the time with the BTX 1 and 115, and it does phenomenal. But I'm just trying to save a little bit of weight here and there because of some of the trips I go on, and it works absolutely phenomenal for me. I'm able to lock it down. I'm able to pan with it really great, and there's just so many.
And that's the thing is when you're using it that way, in the panning, I'll bet you it's butter smooth.
Still butter smooth.
But just a little bit, you know, again, when things start to get outside of their comfort, you know, or their level, you may just have to have a little bit of more control over it. And but that's why you get things like that. I personally like just a little heavier head with those, but I also have that hooked up to a much larger tripod.
Exactly. Yep.
You know, for stool sitting and you know, big giant looks, and that's, again, Brady, I say it all the time, but that's why they make chocolate and vanilla, right? I mean, this gives you some differences, and you know, I think the important thing that we talk about today is just, you know, the adjustments on the VA-5 head that we get questions about all the time.
Yeah, there's a million different ways to set this up and use it, and all the different features that are built into this. It's why I feel like this is the ultimate for me, backcountry tripod head. Literally just, like you said, butter smooth. Absolutely love it, and we're just going to run through a bunch of the configurations on maybe how I set it up and maybe how you could set it up too differently if, you know, different things people want to do for them.
I think the basic movements is that you need to know that there's a lever to tighten your panning, okay? So you can tighten that and lock that out. Or on this side here, you have a lever that I don't typically like to lock them out, so to speak. I will put an optic on there and I will feather in, you know, whatever tension I need to calm that. I always use a figure 8, right? I want to be able to move my optics wherever I want, and when I let off, they hold.
Another cool feature too is the bounce back you get.
Yes.
So when you loosen this up, it's always going to want to. It's like slowly wants to always put it back. It's like more pronounced if we had an optic on.
Which, by the way, that we get questions on this. This is why I run the handle forward on this. And that's a whole nother subject. But the bounce back, what I try to do is, I just had this question yesterday. I always try to have my optics so that no matter what, there's enough tension on it. So if I stop it right there, it stops. If I stop it right there, it stops. And the bounce back is good certainly from a standpoint, if you've got ultralight optics on there, it doesn't just like whip over, you know, flip, or it just kind of takes it in. But I always like to have the weight feathered in. I think that's a little easier to do. But you have different tensions here. You can put all the tension you want on the pan, but you know, like if you're digiscoping and all of a sudden you got to stop and you want to lock it down and do like that, it's in a good solid position.
That's another thing I'll mention too right now. I did a separate video on this out in the field when I was out mule deer hunting. But the really neat thing I like about the Sirui VA-5 head is has the degree indicator on the bottom.
Ethan.
Yeah, Ethan's one who told us about that. And I gave him credit on that video too, because I'd never heard of that before. But when I'm sitting there glassing, let's say I find a buck and I want to lock everything down and I want to switch optics. There's a chance that, you know, if I had this stuff loose, it would move back and forth. But now I know, hey, that buck's at 35 degrees. I just reference that, and I might have to go up and down a little bit, but I know my left and right is perfectly on there, but it's using that indicator down below. And that's a really cool feature on it that I highly recommend people start using on it.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. Anything that you can do to reference and be congruent with the binocular and the tripod.
Yep.
Meaning that when you put your plates on the bottom of your optics, if you've got them all cockeyed, and when you go to stop, maybe you're not pointed actually where you want to be pointed. So I would just tell guys, if you're switching from spotters to whatnot, it just makes sense to have them aligned.
Yep.
So, which brings me to the point is that there's a red button back here, and let me unloosen that you depress here, and this will allow your plates to come out.
That's another cool feature. So if you have that loose,
right,
your spotter or binos aren't just going to slide out and hit
correct.
the dirt. It's going to catch it until you push the release button,
Yep.
and then it'll pop that off.
100% correct. So this is a TY70 plate. This is what comes with the head. It's typically my preferred plate.
Yeah.
I do use a TY50, Pro once in a while when I have smaller objects on there, but that we'll leave that for another video. But it does come equipped with either a 3/8 stud or a 1/4-20 stud. I would tell you that for what I do, I try to utilize if whatever's going on this, if it has 3/8, I will typically make it 3/8. If it has 1/4, then I just use the 1/4.
What's the main purpose of that?
Well, the bigger optics, if you use the bigger threads, I think it seats and holds them.
Okay.
Certainly against any bumps or things that may take along the way, and I just think it's better for the tripod that way.
Perfect.
And then I'm not reliant on the 3/8 to 1/4-20 reducer that's in the spotting scope that most of these sit on. So I will often remove that and just straight up use the 3/8.
That's good information to add.
So 100%. So one of the things, I'm going to do this to show you how easy this is, because we get a ton of questions. I'm taking the handle off just so I can show you for camera purposes. But this lever right here, like right now, I can feel it's a little bit, the throw on it is a little bit long to get it to lock out. And this lever here, if you can see on camera, is spring loaded, and there's a nut underneath there. So if I re-index that on that nut, I went from being loose right here, okay, to being tight right there, as opposed to being tight all the way back here. So again, if you ever get one of these out of the package and it doesn't feel as tight on the Arca Swiss rails, we should mention that they're Arca Swiss, but I've had anodizing sometimes be different. There's all kinds of reasons why that could be just a little bit off.
Yep.
Most of it can be solved with just pulling this lever out and then re-indexing on that system. And once you've done that, you should probably never have to touch it again.
Yep. That's a great thing to mention, because I don't think a lot of people realize that actually does pull out, and you can re-index it and move it around and have it how you want it.
100%. It just shows to the versatility of the head. By the way, the head has a level on it, as does the tripod.
Yep.
So you can use those factors when you're setting up on the ground. There's just a lot to these tripods. The more you get to play with them, the more you get to use them, the better you'll become with them. And the more that you learn from using a tripod, I can't help but say that exponentially you're finding more game.
Yeah, I'm just going to walk through quickly some of my preferences and how
Sure.
I use the handle. So I'm just going to pull this up to make this easier so I can move some stuff around. So I always run mine forward, my handle forward, just like it is. I might have it up a little bit higher, about right here. And instead of putting it downward, like you can see here, it's more angled downward, I kick mine out to the right a little bit. And the reason I do that is, for me, when this is all the way down, I'm glassing, I do a lot with my forward, my ring finger and my pinky as I'm controlling everything, moving it around, and I like it on the right side. But if you're a guy who wants it on the left side and you don't want this thing facing towards you, which you can also do, and have it facing towards you and still be able to glass, you can actually take this, loosen it all the way up, flip it all the way around, and again, I can do that downward angle.
Yep.
And now I could have this on the left side. So it's actually interchangeable right to left to how you want it forward, which I think too, a lot of people may not think about when they have this, because it is so versatile. You can have it, I can glass this way, on the right side. I can have this on the left side.
I think this is the beauty of it, is it's completely your choice of whatever helps you be, smooth in your
if you want it down lower, like you can use any sort of combination of plywood glass with that.
I have to show you, my thought process on this, right? So if you look at that, I'm actually angled in and crossing the center line.
What's your reason for that one?
Well, a lot of times when I'm glassing, I'll have a hand up like this.
Okay, yep, you just
and
left hand.
Obviously it's a different angle, but I can do like this with it. And I just noticed that I can do little increments that way. And it's not always, but sometimes, I may, you get tired and, it may be, that you're just trying to move your arms or do something different, but you may be talking on the radio or on the phone or doing something, but I just always find that if I can do like that, it steadies my hand if I'm moving, or I can come onto this side and move like this too. So I think guys just need to find that position that works for them.
Yep.
And as long as you can control the head and minimize the extra movement and any of that, I think you're doing yourself a favor.
Yeah, and a lot of times too, when I'm grabbing it, a lot of times I'm kind of using it like a ball head in a way. Sometimes I'm grabbing just a whole part of it here as I'm moving it, and I can kind of control it, or grabbing up on top and using these fingers again. Another thing I like to do too, because like when you're glassing so much, you figure out what works best for you. And to me right now, how this tripod is set up, and even though we're talking about the VA-5 head, I always have the center column adjustment on the left side. That way I know it's there all the time, and I'm never, when I'm glassing, like, oh shoot, I gotta raise my center column up, and it's facing forward. I'm like always trying to grab it right here. So I always try to glass and place my tripod the same every single time in the dirt, wherever I'm at. That way I know how to work everything quickly.
And I think the position of that is that for any time, I've taken the handle off.
Take the handle off and use it?
I know guys who do it. I know guys who actually, they would prefer to have, and typically they're doing that when they, like on a BTX.
Yep, just grabbing
because they just would grab and do like so, and they would just feel that this is like a more smoother way for them to do that. And again, I think it all comes back to, you got to do and figure out what adjustments and measurements and all this work best for you.
Yep.
And go from there.
And at the same time, you're saving a couple ounces.
Well, you could be. And by the way, I'll leak this out a little bit. We've got a little something coming that is going to help save some ounces on that, but still give you the handle, and that'll be released here pretty soon.
There we go. So it's basically a quick rundown. I don't think there's anything else.
So on that head, when you buy the head by itself, and it's got a 3/8 female receiver in there. When you're doing that at $164.90, I just don't think there's a better value on the market, period. I think it absolutely does everything that 95% of the people are going to want, and it does it really well.
I got one more thing.
Sure.
Before I forget, we're talking about indexing on the tension here for like a Swiss plate. If you guys don't realize too, you can also index the side part. So if I have this tightened down, I don't want that right there. I want that more in line there. I can pull that out and index that, so that way 100%. It's not going to catch on some of my backpack, or I'm hiking, it's not going to catch on branches. So you can index that little knob wherever you want it to be on the side.
Teamwork makes the dream work, because I wasn't thinking about that, but that is absolutely the truth.
So that's basically a quick overview of everything we love about a VA-5
You know what else we can do on there?
What's that?
I was just thinking about this too. You can also move the plate outward, lock it down.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it.
In case it does have little indicator lines.
Yep.
And it does have measurements on top.
So yeah, depending on how you want to balance.
If you want to balance your optic, and you can do that with where the optic, or where the plate is mounted to the optic, and where the plate is mounted into the head. So you can completely change the orientation and the balance of your optic.
Endless features in the VA-5 head.
You're right. Okay, if you have any questions, please comment below. You can always reach me at optics@gohunt.com. I'm happy to answer questions. I have just a boatload of experience, and over the years, I don't know, I just love giving it back to people and helping them find more game outdoors. So don't be afraid to ask.